I'm not going to have you on without not talking about Brexit. And there's and it does
Right, I'll
coincide.
hang my head in shame. I voted for Brexit, and I absolutely think that was the worst vote I've ever done in my entire life.
But
Why the hell I got hooked on it, I don't know.
the important thing is this is what I really want to talk about now, is that so many people feel the same, and
Yeah,
there's with going back to Keir Starmer, another one of the things that I'm a bit upset with him at the moment is he still seems to be so scared of the Brexit voter. Even though he's just won a massive majority, he's got 5 years in government, he still doesn't want to move any step closer to Europe, even the smallest thing. So recently, basically, the EU came to us and said, can we do, I don't know whether you heard about this, but can we do a visa scheme for under 30s? So anyone in Europe under 30 can move to Britain for 3 years and work and go to school
I
and
hadn't
do
heard of that, but
education.
that seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah, a completely reasonable idea.
Yeah,
It's not going back to freedom of movement. No one can just come and go as they please. Just under 30s. So to fill a lot of gaps in your labour market, to come and go to university and pump money into our economy. And it just seems like such a legitimate thing. But Keir Starmer has said no because he's
yeah, but
still so petrified of this Brexit voter, and it just seems so bizarre to me that
well,
you gone.
perhaps we need more of your podcasts to show the Keir Starmer that us Brexit voters are recognise how wrong we were, on almost every single aspect. Uh, we, I think there was a big campaign by the Conservative Party, um, for probably their own personal economic reasons. They wanted to leave Europe because when you think about it, the Conservative Party had a huge campaign to leave Europe, but the campaign to remain in Europe was so watered down. It was unbelievably weak, and they allowed propaganda to be used without being challenged.
Mm,
One of them was the freedom of movement. You know, we was all worried that we was going to have lots of Eastern Bloc uh, people flooding the country and uh, taking over. Well, the reality is, and bear in mind, my next door neighbour, they're a Polish couple. They've just had a lovely little baby. Um, like you and I, you know, they've just come over. They're pair of them are working like anything,
mm,
putting a lot of money into our economy. And yeah, they will go back one day. They admit it.
yeah, and yeah, this is what I'm
So
talking about. Is so many people now, like yourself, are actually understanding what we had in the EU. It
yeah,
really is now only the real hard-lined sort of racists and people like that that are still entrenched in Brexit being good for the country. I swear, if you've done another vote tomorrow, I reckon it would be about 70% Remain, and
I reckon it'd be higher
this
than that.
probably maybe who knows, but it's
Yeah,
around there
you know,
somewhere.
as you, yeah, because of the age I am, obviously I've got a group of friends that are all um, 70 plus, and even them, I don't. I'd say there's only a small handful who are still hardened Brexit was the right thing.
Mm,
And they're the type of people who do live in the past very much so. You know, they still
yeah,
talk about the Second World War when they weren't even alive themselves.
yeah. Well, the stupid thing is that even some of the racists are starting to come round to the EU because they're seeing, well, okay, we used to have a lot of labour come in from European countries, white people, and now they're seeing that we're having to replace that labour with people from Africa, from India that maybe they don't
yeah,
like so much. Even some of the racists are starting to get on board. I think the only people that are still now in this Brexit cult are the ones that think that basically the EU is like a corrupt organization that is looking I don't know, but they don't want to be a part of it. Even like I've spoken to real hardline Brexit voters before. I've had them on the channel, and they've said, I've said that you can't ignore the obvious fact that Brexit is making the country poorer, and they've said, I don't care. I'd be happy for the country to be poorer and be out of that organisation. So there's people, they're the only ones that are left now that just have this absolute hatred for the EU. They're the only ones that left now. So this is why I really struggle with Keir Starmer still not taking tiny little steps to get closer to EU. He's all about growing the economy. This is the big thing. This is what he got voted in for, to grow the British economy. And the first obvious step is closer ties with Europe.
I'm surprised. Now, I didn't realise that, Mark. You surprised me by that because, yes, I was hoping that he would lead us back into closer ties. Because at the moment, because we've got this hard line, we hate Europe, then it's obviously then Europe are just making life hard for us. It's quite obvious that they're making, they're using us as a little whipping post to anybody else who might be thinking about it and saying, look, this is what will happen to you if you think along the same lines. Look what we'll destroy England at this rate.
Yeah.
But they, as you say, they are olive branches are being held out from Europe, and we should be grabbing them with both hands at the moment. And you say about under 30, I wouldn't object to opening the borders from that Europe to Europe, because this country relies on migrant workers. Now, bear in mind, back in the 80s, we did the same. We were going over to Germany because we could earn more money over there.
Alvida's own pet.
Well,
I always think of.
That's why that program was made. It was made because it recognised the fact that there was a whole army of people going over to Germany to earn money.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I find so bizarre. This is one of the most bizarre things that I found about Keir Starmer is I don't understand why he's still pandering to people that will never vote for him, that never have voted for him, but he still seems to be pandering for these hardcore Brexit voters that are all going to be voting Reform in the next election. I don't understand. It makes no sense to me.
The majority of them were Conservative voters anyway, because Conservatives, when you think about it, was the only big party that was in favour of Brexit, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless, again, you're now back to any one party having a big majority, because obviously the whip was telling all the Conservative MPs to get on board the Brexit boat.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, there's so many questions to why Keir Starmer is doing this. Maybe he's got a long-term goal. Maybe he thinks it's not the right time. Maybe, and there is questions of losing face, and also, full entry back into the EU. We don't even know if they'd have us back after all this anyway. But probably I think at least moves to get back into the single market and the customs union.
Yeah.
But also that a lot of the damage has already been done, and you can't go back anyway. You mentioned about European labour coming over to England, but if you use nurses and doctors as an example, our pay is not competitive to over in Europe. Because of what's happened and because of a lot of the damage from Brexit. I mean, as soon as Brexit was announced, the value of the pound went down. So straight away, all the money that we have invested in the NHS is not buying us the same level of stuff that we had before, and salaries. And the economy as a whole has been massively affected. So we've damaged ourselves so much because of Brexit. If we did do closer ties, and even if we did eventually go back in, we're not going to be competitive for nurses and doctors to come over anyway.
The irony was when we were in, we were a big power. We were one of the top countries, as you say. If we went back now, we'd be cap in hand, and we'd be we'd be below a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries, wouldn't we?